All right, we're back again just before Christmas for one final show, I guess, for 2015. Though we might feel like doing another one before the end of the year. But, you know, I don't know about you, Martin, but I'm sort of into relaxing a bit and putting the feet up in the next week or so. So it might be 2016. But what a way to end the year. On a real high note, we've touched on some space programs over the past year's programs from time to time. And we're finishing this year with that at the head of the show this time. And that is SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. We've talked about this before. Has launched a satellite and then has come back down and landed itself on the pad again. It's incredible.
Yeah, the first stage came down and landed as planned, which is amazing. And I mean, a few weeks ago, Blue Origin did it with their suborbital rocket, and that was amazingly impressive. But this is a full-on industrial-sized rocket that had just launched a satellite into space. The entire first stage came down and landed back on the pad that it departed from.
So how high does this thing go? And you know, when it does its descent, how far is it dropping?
Well, it's going up to about 200 kilometers, 124 miles.
Wow.
And it's doing between Mach 5.5 and Mach 7. So it's going really fast. So it's going along very fast and very high, and it's an arc. So it's almost parallel to the Earth by the time it shuts off.
Right.
And so what they've got to do is they've got to stabilize it, flip it back up the right way, and bring it back down to land.
So it's tricky.
It's tricky. Now, the Blue Origin spacecraft, which was also an incredible achievement, if you think of it, you can't really compare them. The Blue Origin is about half the size, it goes half the distance, and it does about half the speed.
Right.
Nonetheless, an amazing accomplishment.
It's more of a touristy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's competing more with Virgin Galactic, take you up there for 4 minutes. So the SpaceX rocket generates 1.5 million pounds of thrust. The Blue Origin's producing about 150,000 pounds of thrust. So again, a very different animal.
Right. And the SpaceX one is a lot taller too, isn't it? It's a bigger rocket.
It's huge.
The stage.
Yeah. It's more than double the height of the Blue Origin. Yeah, it's 30 meters high.
Wow. Gosh, well, lots of high fives in the SpaceX mission control there, and fair enough.
Well, that's pretty amazing. So the first attempted landing was a complete disaster. The second attempted landing was a disaster.
They had a malfunction, though, didn't they, rather than it being faulty?
One of the attitude, one of the switches managing the attitude rockets apparently took longer than expected to actuate itself. And then the third time lucky, and they landed it in the dark back on the ground.
Incredible.
It's amazing.
Okay, so what a way to end the year.
Really great way to begin the next decade of cheaper space travel.
Yeah. If they can get good payloads, they can compete in the tourist area as well. You can go higher with these guys.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing in terms of certification, though.
Okay.
To go suborbital's not that difficult in terms of keeping you alive. Once you get out of the bounds of the atmosphere, I mean,
the risks go up.
Well, the thing is, once you go to the heights and speeds that SpaceX are going, you've got to have an active way of getting back into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, the orbit will eventually decay, but you could be up there some time.
Yeah.
And maybe not going anywhere near where you want to go. The Blue Origin, it's like chucking a stone really high.
Yeah, and it's going to come down.
It's going to come down.
Yeah. All right, back to Earth, and where should we start? Let's start with the regional jets, C-Series certified.
Yes,
Good
indeed.
to go by the Canadians, which means it's automatic FAA and whatever the
finally
European one is. Yeah,
finally. And the competitor, which is the Mitsubishi regional jet, that looks like it's going to be delayed. There are apparent safety issues which have cropped up during the initial
What does that
certification.
mean? Safety issues?
Who knows? You know, and
understated.
Well, it's either a little bit understated or it's massively overstated, and it could be a paperwork thing. You know, I don't really like headlines like that. Safety issues affect the MIJ
But that's
program.
a very Japanese way of putting it. I'm second guessing, but it sort of sounds like.
But it's going to delay it even more.
And it's All Nippon is the launch customer, isn't it?
Yeah, there's All Nippon's a launch customer, and there's 2 airlines in America have made quite big orders.
Right. Okay. So the C-Series, I think, first delivery goes to Swiss Air or the Swiss.
I think
domestic carrier, is it?
I think this is interesting. I think Swiss Air ordered the first planes, but I'm not sure they're going to be the first operators.
Oh, right, okay.
It's a bit confusing there. But talking about regional jets, if you ever look on Flight Radar and do flightradar24.com and put on a filter for the Sukoi Superjet, there's a surprising number of them buzzing around Mexico.
So they're sort of like in the same class,
Yes.
but not with the big, with the smaller engines.
Smaller engine, and there's a very interesting paper about exactly that. There's an interview with a chief aerodynamicist, which looks like it's been translated with Google Translate. And he's
So a Russian guy.
a Russian guy. And he was explaining why they went with the smaller diameter engine. And he puts in to me it seems quite plausible, but what do I know, about why a smaller fan and a hotter jet is actually better for the type of mission profile that plane's designed for.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting. And he talks about the engine, and he talks about the wing, how they designed the wing, and it sounds quite impressive.
Sukoi have a background of fighter and military fast jets, right? So I guess that's a good background to have.
The Russians know their aerodynamics, and in fact it was the Russian arm of Boeing in conjunction with the Russian Hydro and Aerodynamics Bureau that did a lot of work on the 787 and the 747, apparently.
Okay. Yeah. All right, and it's, sort of strange a bit to see a Russian airliner landing at American airports.
Yeah, they're flying from Mexico into the States now.
And that crash, remember the crash they had, what was it, in Indonesia or one of those countries?
Yes.
When they were showing it off?
All rather unfortunate.
That was bizarre, wasn't it?
Flew into a mountain.
Yeah, for completely ordinary reasons. There was nothing wrong with the plane. It was just a loss of situational awareness and bang.
And another thing about regional jets or mid-sized jets is there was another very interesting article put out by one of the chief engineers at Pratt & Whitney who was saying that in the future trijets and quads might make a comeback, and he says you might be surprised at how small these four-engine planes might be, because he says as materials change and aerodynamics, or how do you say, more advanced aerodynamics are allowed by the amazing possibilities these materials offer in terms of shape and strength and all this type of thing, you might end up having V-tailed planes with two engines at the back and another two engines hidden in the wing roots.
Right, okay.
Because he says the problem is if you start going two-geared on the turbofans, where are you going to put these engines? Because they're going to have these enormous radii.
Yeah, yeah.
So you might have to put them in different parts of the plane, at which point you might say, listen, instead of having two big engines, I'll have four tiny engines with as big a fan as I can put on them. He doesn't think efficiency would suffer.
Right.
You just have more engines. And as we're seeing with these endless arguments now, quad versus twin, it turns out that having more engines doesn't necessarily cost more than having fewer, which is something I didn't know.
Back to the trijets.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of the cost and the efficiency of airliners, we were mentioning, I think last program, that some of the second-hand prices for airliners were sort of making them viable again. And that's been reinforced in the last week. I think Delta picked up a 777 for bargain price, didn't they?
Yeah, and so
under 10 mil.
Yeah, it was Delta that put it out there. Oh, we could pick up a 777-200ER for 10 million, which was roundly shouted down by Boeing and various other people. And 2 weeks later, Delta bought one for 7.7 million.
Yeah.
Which they'll need to refurbish and this, that, and the other. But you'd need to do that with any plane that you wanted to bring into your fleet. And people are saying, it's going to cost them 30-40 million to get it in the air. And other people are saying, no, they've probably got a hangar full of seats and galley sections and this from their older planes. So, no, it's going to be very interesting to see what they put it in the air for. But, yeah, they picked up a used 777-200ER for $7.7 million.
Who did it come from? Did anyone say?
No.
Is it one of the Singapore ones or something?
Well, the article I saw was accompanied by a photo of a Malaysian Airlines 777-200ER.
It could have been one of those.
Could have been one of those.
Well, they had about 10 of those or something.
And this is an ER. It's not an old 200. It's current.
Well, those Malaysian ones are pretty old, though. I think late 90s, early 2000s. But still.
7.7 million.
Yeah. So that confirmed that. And speaking of 777s, the BA 777 that had the engine fire in Las Vegas, they're going to fix it up.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
Because it's like 16 years old or something.
It's old and it looks really badly damaged, and apparently you can pick up a second-hand one for 7.7 million.
So why do you think they'd put it back into service?
Apparently GE is paying for it. It was the GE engine that failed.
Yeah.
And it sounds like GE are going to pay to have it fixed up.
It can't be bad enough.
No, it can't
Otherwise
be.
they would dispose of it.
I mean, if it was large parts of structure, it just would not be worth it. So it looks really bad, but maybe it is just the skins.
Okay.
Well, mainly the skins and a bit of wiring.
Right.
A bit being relative.
Well, that's a happy ending.
I guess for an old plane,
Yeah, it gets a new lease of life. Maybe they've just done the cabin or something, or just sea-checked it or something.
Yeah.
And, they had a lot invested in it.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
Talking about new leases on life, 767-300ERs are, with oil as it's now dipping below $35 a barrel, they are looking viable again.
Gosh.
I was reading a piece where they were saying, listen, if you wanted to start an airline, go and pick up some 767-300s. Don't worry about A330-200s, because at the end of the day, with the capital investment required to purchase an old 767, you're good. They carry a few less people, they're slightly less efficient, but with oil the price it is, carry on. Interestingly, they say they're more viable than a 757.
Okay. Well, more seats.
More seats, and although the 757 is a smaller aircraft and a slightly lighter aircraft, it's not that much lighter in terms of capacity.
One in class. Or...
So your landing fees per person are going to be higher, and your maintenance costs are apparently higher. I don't know why, but that's what they say.
I read somewhere that jet fuel was under now $1 a gallon.
Wow.
So, and speaking of the cost of things, you see that Obama's heading to Hawaii for his holiday, Air Force One. Someone's costed it out as 20 hours out there and back, $200,000 an hour, $3.6 million. That's expensive, isn't it?
That's quite a lot of money.
Burns $15,000 of gas an hour.
Yeah.
So obviously the money is in paying all the people and all the arrangements.
Yes, that's what it'll be. It'll be the bureaucracy surrounding it.
Yeah.
And I bet you if a president ever said, no, it's all right, I'll fly commercial, just give me a couple of seats, they'd say, oh, no, we can't do that, because what would the 500 of us do? They'd actually go home and write blogs about what a cheapskate the president is.
Yeah.
Now they're complaining how expensive he is.
Well, don't they have another one on standby all the time whenever he's going anywhere? And don't they also have helicopters and a C-5 that goes with them and stuff like that usually?
Well, they take the limousines and that and all that, don't they, in another plane?
C-17 or C-5.
Goes ahead.
So you can see how they could run up that bill.
Yeah.
It's just a vacation, though.
Well, you can go on vacation.
It's like one of those holidays you get back and you see the credit card bill and your eyes pop out, except
he never gets the bill.
Someone else pays it.
Yeah.
Oh, 4 million. Yeah, whatever.
It's a lot of money.
Platinum card, gold card with the government logo on it. Oh, now, what about the other day here in Welly? We saw the Qantas plane go over to Chile.
It was on its way to Santiago. Yes, it was skidding along over 500 knots.
Yeah.
33,000 feet, I think it was.
Yeah.
You could see it really clearly, couldn't you?
Big contrail.
Huge swirling contrails.
Yeah.
Came over Marlborough, did like a hook, then turned north and then came over the bay.
Right over the harbour.
Slap bang over the bay, yeah.
Yeah, and you could see that kangaroo tail there quite clearly.
It was very clear, and you could see it was those great contrails where you could see the spiral in them.
Oh, right, from the vortex.
Yeah.
You mean the chemtrails?
All the chemtrails.
And I felt a bit funny the next day. I'm sure there's a link.
Yeah, you looked a bit odd. But no odder than usual, so you're all right.
Had put spray booms on the underneath of the 74400 without anyone noticing, and were spreading their evil chemicals.
Well, there was an article about contrails, and now in Europe they're beginning to think that contrails are not necessarily such a bad thing, as they decrease the amount of sunlight reaching the ground and will help the global warming issue.
Oh, well, so bring it on.
So, wow.
I saw, speaking of vehicles making pollution, but not aviation, I saw a headline. I didn't drill into it, but it was a headline. 5 biggest ships in the world contribute to some huge amount of greenhouse gas.
Yes, I've read a bit about that.
Emissions. But they burn that horrible tarry stuff, don't they? It's like bottom of the barrel.
It's sludge. It's sludge that they actually have to heat up to get it into the engines, otherwise it sets.
Yeah.
So I've read that as well. They are incredibly polluting. And on top of that, as we saw from the MH370 search, every time they find something on the deck they don't like, they seem to heave it overboard.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. So not only are they polluting, they are also polluting.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of MH, which one? 370?
Yeah.
Have there been any developments as we approach? We'd be coming up a year and a half now, wouldn't we?
There's a lot of talk about the 7th arc and how much detail they're putting into mapping it before they actually do the deep sonar scan. So now they've got it to the stage where they think they can do the sonar scan without any danger of hitting any underwater obstacles.
Oh, okay.
They've put a lot of preparation into it, and they do seem to be quite sure, based on the latest information they've got regarding the deployment of the ram air turbine and the reasons for that and blah, 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 that they are quietly confident that this is going to be it.
Wow, I wonder if there'll ever be an answer to this. If you find the wreckage, at least you can probably work out how the thing impacted. And if you can do that, you can sort of then reverse engineer if anyone was in control or the attitude of the thing.
But that new information, it doesn't seem to be new information, but that confirmed information that the last ping came about when the ram air turbine deployed.
Was it the ram air or the APU going?
Well, now they're saying the ram air came out.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So they do. It does sound like fuel starvation. The right engine runs out before the left engine.
Yeah.
Then the APU comes on. The APU runs for 10 minutes or whatever. The APU cuts out. The ram air turbine pops out, and at each of those things, a ping is sent, independent of any other item that might be pinging.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's hence this. How do you say the big gaps between pings? These were emergency pings that weren't controlled by any other system on the plane.
So you could say that it would be unlikely in that case, from crew psychology point of view, that if a guy was hell-bent on killing himself and everybody on board, which is one of the main theories put forward, and a lot of people have promoted that quite strongly throughout, why would you let everything run out of fuel? And, why would you go...
The only... not possible scenario. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that could have happened. The only semi-plausible idea I've heard into that, if the guy committed suicide.
Oh, so he
killed his co-pilot, topped himself, and then let the plane fly on. But again,
Well, how do you do that though?
You shoot yourself.
Well, how can you get the weapon onto the plane?
I'm pretty sure a pilot could get a weapon onto a plane.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, that could happen.
But we won't know until we know.
It's sort of...
It's a bit out there.
Yeah, it is. It's more out there still than something else that may be related to a series of things going wrong that were beyond their control. Anyway, okay, so maybe it won't be that long before they find something.
Well, they do seem to be, like I said, quietly confident. In the latest briefing, they came with an enormous amount of detail. Meter-long printouts showing the seabed in the proposed arc, the reason they're going for that arc, a new analysis of all the ping data, and so they're going for it.
Speaking of trying to work out these sort of mysteries, I see the Russians revealed their data recorder for the plane that was shot down by the Turkish, and a
malfunctioning SD card.
Were you surprised to hear that?
No, just gives them more time to make up more data about the plane that got shot down over Syria.
Well, because they were making a big deal, we got a flight data recorder, and this will show what happened, and this will prove this and prove that.
Yeah.
And then, oh dear.
No, I'm not surprised.
All the channels that would have recorded the thing weren't working or were damaged or something.
Even Russia doesn't help itself. As I was saying the other day, these press conferences with Putin where the questions are all obvious plants, and particularly the question where the woman reporter asks the question like this: as a woman, I would really like to know how you keep so trim, President Putin. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, where did you come from? Whose payroll are you on again?
Yeah, it's
obvious. It must be for domestic consumption because we don't buy it.
Well, you'd hope so. Doesn't, yeah.
Or maybe we're
pretty sure half the Russians
we might be
don't buy
misinterpreting his actions and his intent here, Martin.
That could be. Well, I mean, him and Donald will get on really well. They'll be sort of out riding each other on horses.
Yeah, bear hunting together.
Yeah, bare-chested bear hunting on horses.
Yeah, and I think Donald would want something a bit more luxurious than that.
That's true.
With gold trim.
Or gold horse.
And velour.
Yeah.
All right, so next year it's going to be the 737 MAX going to service, probably towards the end of next year.
The A320neo in the next week or so.
Yeah, okay, so
going well.
We'll hear about how that goes. And of course, Air New Zealand have some coming, so A321s to look forward to in New Zealand next year.
Yes.
Is it next year? I think it is.
I think it is next year.
Oh, Air New Zealand touched down in Texas at George Bush Airport Houston recently.
In a green plane, though, right?
Yeah, that was sort of weird. I'm looking at the photo here. 777-200, and there's the Maori welcome, and yeah, it's got the old Pacific wave on it. I wonder if it was substituted.
Interesting.
Because that's not the sort of branding you want to...
No, you just sent the black one, or yeah.
Yeah.
At least one of the new ones.
I'm amazed that there's still any in that livery.
Yeah, I thought they would have had them all repainted by now.
That must be, pretty close to having to go in the shop. But yeah, why would you start a big service like that where the initial branding impression is important with the Māori connection and everything, and use something that's from the 90s?
Yes, I don't understand it. I was just as surprised as you to see that picture.
That was on the 16th of December. They went there. So to end the year, rather than do an aircraft of the day or week or month or whatever we do, let's talk about the standout events in aviation and space this year. And we've just been talking about it, really. It would have to be the new rockets that are able to land themselves. I mean, this is something that people used to dream about. And here it is, it's reality now.
I'd agree with that. It looks like a Tintin rocket coming back to Earth. And as an avid reader of Tintin as a kid, I expected all rockets to have red and white checks.
Yes,
and to come back down the way they went up.
I know the Tintin book you're talking about. What
yes.
was it called? Yeah.
And I've got a model of that rocket.
Yeah.
Although it's not an aircraft, it is in the air for a while. And I think that is an absolutely amazing accomplishment by both of those companies to be able to bring a rocket back down the way it came.
Yeah. And to actually take it to, as SpaceX have done, to commercial viability now. It's going to become the regular thing, isn't it?
It's incredible.
I think those are the number one things. The second major development are these new breed of jets, like the C-Series.
The efficient gear turbofans is going to be, provided they get all the troubles sorted out. Apparently they are having some issues with getting enough oil to the main bearing that supports the gearbox and the fan. The reason Qatar's not taking the first ones is because they're objecting to the fact that they've got to warm it up on the ramp for 3 minutes before they can apply sufficient power. It looks like Lufthansa is going to get the first one, and it looks like it's going to be touch and go as to whether it's this year.
So that new gear turbofan is another highlight of the year. It's on the A320. It's on the C-Series.
Yeah.
And what about the Mitsubishi? What's that?
I think they've also got the smallest version of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's another standout for 2015.
It's a huge leap, 15%.
Yeah.
So that makes the A320 amazingly efficient when you consider how long it's been around. A new engine, some aerodynamic tweaks, and you're looking at a 20% improvement over the current one, which is already an improvement over the early models.
So what next? Where are we going to go next?
Yes.
And I remember seeing this. You might have seen it in the last week. Did you see that video of the skylift in the cabin?
Yes.
Where they had a fairing on the top of the fuselage, and you can get in this lift and go up and have that. I thought that was a pretty cool idea too.
I think that is and
it looked doable.
It does look doable, but I think what's even more doable is, as somebody mentioned in the past, if you have flexible displays and you make the whole crown of the first class section into just this huge display with high-def cameras pointing outside, you could have the same thing without drilling a hole in the fuselage.
Mind you, the real view up there in the bubble in luxury, that's pretty cool. And you pay huge money for it, wouldn't you?
You would pay an enormous
You probably
amount of money
do
for
2
it.
or 3 in the cabin.
Yeah.
But it just shows you creativity. It never goes away. People are always trying to work out the next thing.
Yeah. Premium passengers will pay.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I find interesting is we were talking about it yesterday, I think, was the fact that cruise line is now buying aircraft, kitting them out as luxury flying cruisers.
Air cruisers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with the same concept as the sort of the ship cruise.
So you spend 8 days flying around the world in the lap of luxury and spend your 30k or whatever it is you spend on a cruise.
50 seats in a 787 they're doing. I think it was 70-some seats in the 777, the LR that they're doing. So huge range, eh?
Yeah.
Huge range.
Yeah, so you could take a 5-day cruise of the Pacific.
Or just circumnavigate the globe.
Just fly around the world.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do we get in on that, by the way? Got any ideas?
Spend less time doing shows like this and more time working hard.
No, what we could say is look, we do this aviation show and we've got lots of listeners, and Send us on this. We'll do a feature on it. And
Yeah,
before
both
you
of them
know it,
might be interested.
People will be lining up.
Yeah,
They'll be mortgaging their houses just to
Yeah.
go on this.
yeah.
All right, well, that's it for the year, I guess, and we'll be back sometime in the new year, all going well. Bearing in mind that the old Kiwi shutdown, Martin, people
That's true. That's true.
tend to go to sleep and not want to do too much or make any sort of effort.
Basically, yeah, I had my final meeting today. Basically, nothing's happening until
That's
I
it.
think the 12th
There you go.
or the 11th.
So we'll be back in 2016. Have a great holiday period. And this is Paul Brennan in Wellington. And,
Martin Noakes in Wellington, Merry Christmas.
oh, did you have to say that?
I did.
Okay, then. Same to you.